In this video tutorial, we show you how the project manager, using SCMPP add-in for Microsoft projects, publishes projects and receives timesheets from resources. After you install the SCMPP add-in for Microsoft Project, open your project plan using Microsoft Project. A new menu option called SCMPP is available. An essential requirement for the system working is the presence of a correct and valid email address in the email address column of the resource sheet. The resources with the missing email address in the resource sheet will not be able to access the system. The first time you use the add-in, you need to configure the license key, choosing the appropriate menu option. To use a project plan in the SCMPP system, the project must be initialized. Project initialization allows the project manager to configure how resources can submit their timesheet. In addition, the few data transmitted over the network are end-to-end encrypted with a system password. If you want, you can specify your own password, but remember to communicate it to the resources because the SCMPP system does not want to know your password. The password can be the same for multiple projects, so you don't have to notify resources every time. As for the other available options, you can decide to receive from the resources the total completion percentage, the total actual work, the daily, weekly, monthly detailed actual work. In addition, you can have an exchange of notes with the resource with a view of the history. You can also allow the resource to suggest a task or set the task as completed. To publish the tasks to the resources or to receive the timesheets, the synchronize function is used. The synchronization window allows you to view the status of all assigned tasks. In this case, there are 2 local tasks on Microsoft Project that have not been published, so the system proposes the default action named Publish. The actions can be changed punctually or massively. In this case, we proceed with the publication by executing the actions using the Execute button. After executing the actions, the window is updated. As you can see, the cloud icon appears next to the tasks, indicating that the status of the task is published and visible to the resources. The default action is Skip, as there are no other operations to do on these tasks. It is better to close this window to allow the resources to be able to update the progress status of the tasks. After publication, the resource receives its identifier via email, which it must configure in the SCMPP timesheet client. The identifier is only sent to the resource and should be kept secure and treated as a password. The identifier is sent only once to the resource, which needs to configure it only once. When the resource opens the SCMPP timesheet client for the first time, a message informs on the missing resource identifier. The resource proceeds by selecting the menu option to configure the identifier. A new window allows you to specify the resource identifier and to run the installation. The system checks the correctness and the presence of the identifier. By selecting the first menu option, the resource displays the projects and tasks. In this case, there is only one project with 2 tasks. Let's go into detail about the first task. The first part is fixed and summarizes the main data of the task. The second part indicates how to modify the progress status. In this case, it is the total completion percentage. You proceed with the modification, and using the appropriate button you can publish your task progress. When the project manager wants to synchronize the timesheets for a given project, he/she opens the project with Microsoft Project, selecting, via the SCMPP add-in, the Synchronize option, where he/she will see the assigned tasks and their status. In our example case, the first task has been modified by the resource and the relative icon indicates that the task is published and modified by the resource. The value specified by the resource is indicated in the appropriate column. The default action in this case is to accept the resource modification. If the project manager agrees, he/she proceeds using the Execute button. Acceptance modifies the Microsoft project plan and automatically republishes the task. You can observe the change to the project plan on Microsoft Project. By opening the task on the client timesheet, the resource will see the progress accepted. In this example, we have seen the case in which the project manager allows the resource to change the percentage of completion of the task. Now let's look at the other possible options. Let's see the case in which the project manager allows the resource to modify the total actual work of the task. In this case, the resource, when opening the detail of the task, can update the total hours of the actual work. Now let's see the case in which the project manager allows the resource to indicate the hours worked, daily, weekly, or monthly. The project manager can also indicate how many periods can be made available to the resource, compared to the last edited period. The resource, when opening the detail of the task, can update the total hours of the current work for each available period, in this case daily. The periods are always consecutive and also include holidays which cannot be edited. Editing is only allowed for periods that have planned work. During synchronization, the project manager sees that the detailed timesheet has been edited. Therefore, with a double click on the detailed timesheet column icon, she sees the list of periods edited by the resource. Now let's explore the additional options. Note exchange between project manager and resource. In this case, the resource can write notes to the project manager, and also the project manager can write or reply to the resource by writing in the appropriate column. With a double click on the icon of the appropriate column, you can see the history of the notes exchanged between the project manager and the resource. To use this feature, the SCMPP system uses the Notes column of the Microsoft project assignment. Do not edit or display this column to ensure proper functioning. In addition to the exchange notes, it is possible to allow the resource to declare the task termination. The task termination is not always available in the client timesheet, even if it is configured by the project manager. If the task in Microsoft Project is in automatic scheduled mode and the type is fixed work, the task finish date is requested only if the project is initialized by SCMPP with percentage of completion. If the project is initialized by SCMPP with the detailed timesheet, you can set the task as finished, but the system takes the date of the last submitted timesheet period as the finish date. A particular feature is to allow the resource to suggest a task. The resource under the project sees this option and, therefore, can suggest a task by entering detailed data, name, estimated number of hours, start date, and finish date. After making the suggestion, the task awaits the approval from the project manager. During this time, the resource can decide to cancel this request. During the synchronization phase, the project manager sees the request for task suggestions and decides whether or not to accept the request using the available actions. In case of acceptance, the suggested task is assigned to the resource and inserted in Microsoft Project under a predefined summary. After this operation, the task can be moved to another position. Now the suggested task has become a real task in Microsoft Project. Through synchronization, the task can be published to make it visible to the resource. When you no longer want to make the project available in the SCMPP system, you can simply remove it by opening the project properties and selecting the Remove Project section. Now you can proceed using the Remove button. After removal, in order to make the project still available in the SCMPP system, it will be necessary to initialize and publish the tasks. We are sure that this service can be useful to your company by improving efficiency in the management of complex projects. If you already use a timesheeting system, switching to SCMPP will certainly save you a lot of money and you will be satisfied with your choice. Thank you for following this video tutorial.